Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Philosophy of Life channel, where you can reflect, awaken, and connect with your true self. Today, we will listen
6 Greatest Lessons of Albert Einstein. Put your hand on a hot stove for a minute and it will feel like an hour. Sit next to a beautiful girl for an hour and it will feel like a minute. This quote not only explains the principle of relativity in a humorous way, but also reflects the fact that time is not absolute, but depends on how we experience it. A minute can last forever in pain, or it can fly by in joy. Time is an illusion of length. Einstein was not talking about a physical phenomenon, but about a profound truth about how we experience life. In his theory of relativity, he demonstrated that time is not an absolute entity, but can stretch depending on velocity and gravity. A person moving close to the speed of light will experience time more slowly than a person standing still. And an object subject to strong gravity will experience time more slowly than one with weak gravity. But beyond scientific theory, the concept of time has a larger philosophical significance. It doesn't really exist in the way people think. There are moments that last only a few seconds, but are imprinted in our minds for a lifetime. There are years that pass by so quickly that when we look back, we feel like they never really existed. When you are waiting in pain, each minute seems like an eternity. But when you are happy, a year can pass in the blink of an eye. That is to say, time is not a constant flow, but a subjective experience. Time is not about the numbers on the clock, but how we perceive it. So what determines how fast or slow time passes in people's minds? It is the way we live. If you live a boring, repetitive life with nothing memorable, time will pass meaninglessly. But if you live with deep experiences, with creativity, with moments that really matter, you will feel like you have lived a long time, even though the actual number of years may not be many. That is why there are people who live only a few decades, but leave a deep mark on history, while there are people who live for more than a century, but when they leave, it seems like they have not really lived a single memorable day. If time is an illusion, what does it mean to waste time? It is not simply sitting around doing nothing, but living a life unconsciously, drifting along, without awareness, without purpose, without a deep appreciation of each moment. On the contrary, when you live fully in each moment, when you truly feel life with all your consciousness, you are extending time in a sense, not physically, but experientially. A short but meaningful moment can be worth more than a long empty year. If you live a meaningful life, you will feel that a human life is endless. But if you just exist without really living, even 100 years is just a blink of an eye. Logic will take you from A to Z, but imagination will take you everywhere. This quote from Einstein is not just a statement, but also a principle of thinking that has created geniuses. We are often taught that logic is the foundation of intelligence, the way to solve problems accurately and systematically. But Einstein did not rely solely on logic. He understood that logic can only help us follow existing paths, while imagination opens up new paths, beyond the limits of what conventional thinking can achieve. If we rely solely on logic, we will forever follow the old paths of thinking, because logic operates based on what is known, on existing laws. But the great breakthroughs in history have not come from following the old rules, but from breaking them. It was imagination that helped Newton see the law of gravity from a falling apple. It was imagination that helped Einstein visualize the bending of light through space. And then the theory of relativity. Imagination, however, is not a figment of the imagination. It is not a vague dream, but a powerful tool for envisioning possibilities that logic cannot reach. When you imagine, you not only see reality as it is, but also see reality as it could be. Great scientists, brilliant artists, and lost thinkers all have one thing in common: the ability to imagine beyond the limits of the present. But why do most people get stuck in logic and fail to develop their imagination? Because our education system, our society, and even our environment teach us to think in patterns. We are taught that everything has a right or wrong answer, that we must follow a formula to get the right result. This kills creativity. A child can see a whole world in a blank sheet of paper. But when we grow up, we see only a blank sheet of paper and nothing more. Einstein once said that if you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy tales. If you want your children to be more intelligent, Read them more fairy tales. This may sound simple, but it actually contains a profound truth. Fairy tales do not teach children rigid formulas, but teach them to imagine, to see the world from new angles. That is the foundation for them to be able to create breakthrough ideas later. So how to train the imagination without losing logic? The secret lies in keeping an open mind. Ask questions instead of accepting ready-made answers. Imagine multiple scenarios for a problem instead of looking for just one solution. Take time to think like a child, without being bound by rules or conventions. If logic is the road, imagination is the wings. Only by combining the two can we fly far. The measure of intelligence is not the amount of knowledge a person has, but the ability to change and adapt to circumstances. Einstein said so, contrary to the popular notion in modern society, where people often judge intelligence based on degrees. Grades are the ability to memorize information. But let's face it, the world is changing day by day, hour by hour, and what is true today may become obsolete tomorrow. Knowledge can be an advantage, but if we rely on knowledge alone without the ability to adapt, we will soon be left behind. We see this in history. The creatures that survive the longest are not the strongest, but the most adaptable. The mighty have gone extinct, while the smaller creatures have survived the harsh changes of the earth. The same is true in human society. Individuals and organizations that are flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances are always the leaders. But how do we develop the ability to adapt? First, we need to understand that change is inevitable. People are often afraid of new things because we tend to cling to stability, to what is familiar. But the truth is, nothing is really stable. Life is always changing, and those who do not change are eliminated. The important thing is not to resist change, but to learn to flow with it. Buddhism has a concept called impermanence. Everything changes. Nothing is fixed. This is not a pessimistic philosophy, but a truism. If you understand this, you will no longer panic before life's events. Instead of clinging to old things, you will learn to be flexible, adjusting your thinking and actions to adapt to the new environment. Take a look at your own life. The times you feel stuck, helpless, is it because the situation is too difficult, or is it because you are not ready to change? How many times have you stubbornly stuck to a rut just because you are afraid to try something new? When you realize that adaptability is more important than knowledge, you will begin to cultivate an open mind, a mind that is not limited to what you already know but is always ready to learn, change and evolve with every moment of life. Einstein was not a genius because he had too much knowledge, but because he never stopped asking questions, never stopped adjusting his view of the world. When people accepted that time is absolute, he thought differently, asked questions, and from there created the theory of relativity, a revolution in science. That can only happen when you dare to step out of your comfort zone and accept that there are things you don't know, that the world is bigger than you thought. So if you want to be truly smart, don't just accumulate knowledge, learn to change. When a problem occurs, don't ask why it happened to you, but ask, how can I adapt? When faced with a failure, don't see it as the end, but see it as an opportunity to adjust, to grow. Because in the end, it is not the best who will win, but the most flexible, those who can turn every situation into an opportunity to grow. Science without religion is like a fan. Religion without science is blind. Einstein's quote has caused much controversy, but if we look deeply into its nature, we will see a thoughtful truth. Humans have long divided the world into two distinct categories. Science is the realm of reason, evidence, and experimentation, while religion is the realm of faith, spirituality, and things beyond the measurability of science. These two paths seem to be opposites, but are they really? Science seeks truth through observation, measurement, and verification. It is based on logical principles that require concrete evidence for hypotheses before they can be accepted. In contrast, religion, especially deeply philosophical traditions such as Buddhism, does not rely on numbers or experiments, but instead looks inward, seeking truth through direct experience of the mind. These two paths may seem different, but they share the same goal: discovering the nature of reality. Einstein was a pure scientist, but he never denied the value of religion. Of course, he did not believe in a traditional God, a creator who controlled the universe as a separate entity. Instead, He believed that the universe operated according to laws so profound and mysterious that one could call them spiritual if one wished. For him, reverence for the beauty and harmony of the universe is also a form of faith. Not blind faith, but reverence for an order beyond human understanding. So what use is religion to science? It can be said that science provides tools to explore the external world. But it is religion, or more precisely philosophy and meditation, that help people explore the internal world. Buddhism is not a system of blind faith, but an experimental method for the mind. The Buddha did not ask anyone to believe his words, but encouraged people to observe, experience and realize for themselves. This is also the spirit of science, not accepting a truth just because someone says it is true, but verifying it by one's own experience. But if science and religion can complement each other, why do people often put them in opposition? The main reason is misunderstanding on both sides. Modern science often rejects religion because it sees only religious rituals, dogmas, and beliefs based on legend rather than reality. Meanwhile, many religious people see science as a threat to their beliefs, because they fear that if everything can be explained by science, there will be no room for the sacred. But that is not the case. As science advances, we see more and more overlap with ancient concepts in philosophy and religion. Quantum physics today is getting closer to what Zen masters have been saying for thousands of years. That reality is not fixed. That consciousness can influence matter. That the ego is an illusion. What was once only possible through meditation and intuition can now be described in the language of mathematics and physics. This does not mean that science is proving religion, but rather that both are moving towards the same point, each taking a different path. So what can we learn from this? It is not to dismiss what we do not understand. A true scientist should not despise spiritual values, just because they cannot be measured by current instruments. And a true spiritual practitioner should not reject science, just because it does not fit with his beliefs. If the two can complement each other, man will have a more complete picture of the universe and of himself. Einstein saw it. He didn't take sides, but looked at the world from a broader perspective, where scientific curiosity and cosmic humility could coexist. That's a lesson for all of us. Don't be limited by labels or stereotypes, but always be open-minded, because maybe the truth doesn't lie in a single theory, but in the intersection of seemingly opposite paths. The world is a dangerous place, not because of bad people, but because of those who do nothing to stop them. This is not just a warning from Einstein, but also a naked truth about how the world works. We often think that evil, injustice, and wrongs in society are caused by evil people, but the reality is different, because if there are only a few evil people, why do wrong things continue? The real reason is not because the evil people are too powerful, but because the majority still choose to stand still, choose to ignore, choose to be silent even when they know that it is wrong. Look at history. The most brutal regimes were not created by a single dictator, but by millions of people who followed orders without asking questions. Massacres, unjust wars, oppressive policies, all of these cannot happen without the silent consent of the masses. People often think that they are not involved, that the responsibility does not belong to them, that as long as they do not get involved, they are still innocent. But the truth is that when you choose to stay silent in the face of injustice, you become a part of it. Why do people choose to remain silent? Because of fear of confrontation, because of crowd mentality, and sometimes because of apathy. The bystander effect is one of the most dangerous psychological phenomena in human society. When a person sees an injustice but does not act because he thinks someone else will do it for him, as a result, nothing is done and the particular injustice continues. This happens not only on a large scale but also every day in each of our lives. Someone is bullied on the street. Someone is treated unfairly at work. A lie spread without anyone speaking up. All of these moments are proof that the world is dangerous not only because of evil people but also because of the indifference of good people. But not everyone wants to ignore it. The problem is that when people try to speak up, they are often isolated, mobbed, or even attacked. A society built on fear makes silence the norm. But remember that every major change in history begins with a few who dare to speak up. With people who refuse to stand idly by in the face of evil. With individuals who are brave enough to speak the truth even when they know they will face the consequences. This is also mentioned in Buddhism. People are not only responsible for themselves but also for the world around them. If you see something wrong and do not stop it, that is also a type of karma. Inaction does not mean innocence. For silence in the face of wrongdoing is a form of abetting its existence. A wise man must not only cultivate his own wisdom, but also use that wisdom to illuminate the right path for others. Because knowledge is not only a privilege but also a responsibility. If you are knowledgeable enough, wise enough to recognize the truth but remain silent while innocent people fall into the spiral of misinformation and misunderstanding, then that silence has become an invisible complicity with the wrong. Remember, evil will never disappear if we continue to give it space to exist. And the world will not become better if those who have the power to change it choose to remain silent. Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value. Einstein's quote is not only a piece of advice but also an awakening for those who are chasing success and forgetting the true meaning of life. Success, as defined by society, is often measured by money, fame, and status, but these are temporary things that come and go. That can be achieved by luck or even by dishonest means. Meanwhile, the value of a person is not in what they own but in what they create, in how they contribute to the world around them. Einstein did not pursue fame or flashy titles. He did not seek public acclaim, praise or awards. He was only after truth, a deeper understanding of the nature of the universe, discoveries that would advance humanity. That is why, without consciously seeking success, he became one of the most influential people in history. But what makes him great is not the medals or the admiration of the world, but the values he left behind. Theories that changed the way people understand reality. Timeless thoughts that inspired millions of people. A valuable person is simply someone who lives without thinking only of himself. A scientist who devotes his life to the advancement of knowledge is a valuable person. A teacher who is dedicated to imparting knowledge to the next generation is a valuable person. An ordinary person who is willing to help others in need is also a valuable person. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. What matters is whether you leave something better for the world. In Buddhist scriptures there is an important principle. Your words, the words of others, the words of sentient beings. A truly valuable action is one that benefits not only yourself, but also those around you and beyond. If you only seek personal gain without caring about its impact on others, it is just selfishness disguised as success. But if what you do can help you grow, can help others become better, can contribute to making this world less miserable, then that is a lasting value, a true success. But why are people so obsessed with success instead of value? Because success is easier to see, easier to measure. People can see how much money you make, how many awards you win, how many fans you have, but value is intangible. Sometimes it cannot be immediately judged. A sincere word may not be remembered. A silent help may not be mentioned. But it is these seemingly small things that have a powerful influence, silently shaping the thoughts, emotions and lives of others. Einstein was not a rich man, not a powerful politician, nor a successful businessman, but to this day, he is still remembered not for what he achieved for himself, but for the values he left behind that changed the world. And that is true for all of us. A meaningful life is not about what we get, but about what we leave behind. Success may come and go, but value will last forever. Einstein left behind not only great scientific works, but also a way of thinking that can change the way people see the world. He not only talked about logic and imagination, but also pointed out that intelligence does not lie in memorizing knowledge, but in the ability to adapt, see reality differently and constantly ask questions. He not only discussed science and religion, but also proved that two seemingly opposite fields can actually complement each other to expand human understanding. He not only warns about the evil in this world, but also emphasizes that it is the silence of good people that causes evil to continue to exist. Time is relative, but true values are eternal. We cannot extend time in the physical sense, but we can make our lives more meaningful by living fully, creating lasting values. It doesn't matter who you are, how much you have, or how long you live. What matters is how you live, and what you leave behind. In the end, it's not what we own, but what we give. It's not the years we live, but how we live them. Thank you for joining Chia Tam. If you find this video useful, Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and share it with your loved ones. Philosophy of Life wishes you and your family peace, happiness and good health. See you in the next videos.